Hi, everyone. My name is Christina Prella.
And my name is Janet Carr. Welcome to another episode of the Women in 3D Printing podcast. In spirit of the upcoming TIPE 3D Printing virtual conference taking place January 27th to 28th next year, 2021, we are going to be dedicating the first series to the TIPE. So you might be wondering, what is the TIPE? TIPE represents the tracks for the conference: technology, industry, people, and economics.
And as your hosts, we are so excited to share our conversations with these trailblazing women. The all female speaker lineup we have prepared for this conference is made up of women that have carved their careers in additive manufacturing and have inspired all of us. We can't wait to introduce them to you so you can get to know them before the conference.
So we invite you to hit that subscribe button, follow us on LinkedIn, and get to know the stories of these awe-inspiring women before the event.
We'd also like to give a shout out to our platinum sponsors, HP, Trumpf, Matter Hackers, GE Additive, and Dassault for making all of this even possible.
So, Sonita, what launched your career into additive manufacturing?
Yeah, actually, that's a big question, and I want to kind of take a step back a little bit, to look at, my career just real quick. So I would say I have a pretty diverse career. I think it wasn't always clear, which area I wanted to get into, and I've done actually many things, Janet. I started my own company right after college, did that for a couple of years, sold it to a larger competitor. I've worked in several, smaller software companies here in the Bay Area. And then I decided, hey, I wanted to go back to graduate school. But I think that was really in graduate school that I kind of developed at least some guiding principles with regard to, hey, where do I want to go next? And the guiding principles were really just simple two things. One was, I somehow realized I really love the intersection of new technology, that enable new business models, and believe it or not, a little bit of policy for some reasons. And then the second is, I knew I wanted to work in an area that, you're actually contributing something more rather than just selling a product. So using these two, long story short, it got me into the industrial IoT space. So after graduate school, the last 15 years have been focusing on industrial IoT, both at, venture-backed Silicon Valley companies, but also within new businesses within large companies like Siemens. And it was really when I was at Siemens 2.5 years ago, I got a call from HP. And at the time, they said, hey, there is this opportunity to lead global marketing for their new business, 3D printing and digital manufacturing. And to be honest, I knew nothing about 3D printing. But the way I view it, because I have been in kind of like the industrial IoT space, when you think about it, it's really about enabling digital transformation, but mostly for infrastructure. And I view 3D printing as one of the technologies enablers that will also enable the digital transformation for manufacturing. And so I thought, hey, something parallel, something new, but still kind of related. And so I decided to come here to HP. So really, I think that's how my career in additive started, was because, the opportunity opened up, and I view it as something that's an adjacency to, the area that I have been in for the previous 15 years.
Well, we definitely are thankful that HP brought you in here.
Oh, yeah. Well,
Because you definitely have a wide variety of background experiences, right? From venture, startup, energy business, and what have you. What are your perspectives coming into additive manufacturing as an outsider's point of view?
Great question. So, okay, to be honest, I think in the beginning, I really felt that many in the additive industry focus, I think, a little bit too much on the technology side. I think a lot of folks really like to focus on kind of the features of the product, the speeds and feeds, kind of the capabilities, which is all great, don't get me wrong. But I think we as an industry, all of us need to be able to articulate kind of the business benefits and the outcomes that, again, our technology solutions deliver to the customers. I feel like, in the beginning, at least when I first started this industry, a little bit focused too much on the technology and not enough on the outcome that's delivered to the customers. Because again, using the digital transformation framework, right, at the end of the day, I think additive is one of those technologies that really enable customers to achieve, let's say, three benefits. Okay. The first benefit, I think, is I just bucket it as operational efficiency. So you help companies to be more efficient, be it in their product development cycle, in their supply chain, all of these is about efficiencies, of their processes, right, internally. And usually that I would say is the easiest, because that's low hanging fruit. But then the second, I think, additive technology and digital manufacturing enables our customers to be able to deliver superior customer experience to their end consumers, usually in the form of customized products, personalized products. And then the last one, which is, I think, the hardest, especially for incumbents, if you have incumbents customers with legacy processes and systems, is actually to help our customers to be able to, I would say, create new business models or create new revenue streams that wouldn't otherwise be possible. And based on my experience so far, it seems it's easier to do that with a customer that's I'm going to call it digital native, meaning like they're startups, but probably venture backed, like well capitalized. However, they don't have any legacy system, and they have found that additive is the right process for what they need. Then it's easier, and at the same time, they're also creating new business or new business model and all that. And so when you think of it that way, I think the industry as a whole can benefit so much more if you focus more on the benefits that you deliver to customers rather than only talking about the product features. The good news though, Janet, I think, like the industry continues to mature, you know what I mean? And I think I've seen, the industry right now focusing, starting to be more customers and solution centric. And also, I think the other thing that's important is for the industry to break down the silos between the hardware vendors, the software vendors, materials vendors, because at the end of the day, from the customer's perspective, I think we all need to continue to collaborate, right, to develop standards for the overall solution so that you can actually help the customers to deliver that benefits.
You aimed at a really important point of, focusing on the value add of additive manufacturing. And we are at an industry, when you go to the industry events, everyone's very focused on here's a new product, and focusing on that storyline, helping users build that business case, I think is super important for.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, no one will adopt a new technology just because it's cool. I think the hobbyists would, right? They're always playing around with things. But for you to get to scale, especially to jump into production, it has to make both business and technical sense.
Do you have any tips for champions out there who are braving the way on how to get more buy-in, or what's the best way to educate their community?
Yeah, so I have a theory here, and I leverage this from my industrial IoT background because industrial IoT platform is also a new thing, right, for many companies. I think the important thing is to find the right champions inside some of these big companies. Usually you start with the innovation office, which is always great. But I think if you only focus there, sometimes it's hard to really effect change in the whole organization. So you need to find places or spots, within the customer environment. Let's say an enterprise customer, definitely work with the innovation office because that's where usually new things come out from. But you also have to have engagements with the business owners, because at the end of the day, in order for your solutions to be implemented at scale, let's say, the VP of production or the VP of manufacturing, the business owner needs to buy into it. And usually what that means, you have to be able to prove your business case. And at least from my industrial IoT experience, usually you start with the pilot project, but with the real objective and purpose, because it's also dangerous to be, stuck in pilots forever, right? So, you can engage with the pilot project, smaller project, trying to prove the business case. And as you are proving the business case, then usually, if you get the buy-in at the right level, especially not just at the innovation office, but also with the business owners on the customer side, then you can expand, to other facilities or to other areas.
Hopefully, Sonita, you can write us a playbook one day. You mentioned something interesting, right? Because you've got IoT, additive manufacturing. You know, additive manufacturing is still an emerging technology. It's about 30 years old for plastics, 15 years old for metal. So we're growing. We're maybe at the teenage phase, you know. And a lot of times, you know, we're using these emerging technologies to be more creative and innovate, right? And we want to be able to bring that to the workplace. So, what are some of the frameworks for inspiring more creativity and innovation
Mhm.
in your day-to-day operations, whether you're doing prototyping, series production, or manufacturing supports?
Right. Okay, so before I answer that particular question, I want to just take a step back because, in my experience, sometimes I think people confuse creativity and innovation, or vice versa. For me, at least, the definition is I think creativity is all about the ideation. It's about the ability to think outside the box and get that big ideas. And innovation, I think, on the other hand, is about executing on those ideas and actually making them into reality. Um, Thomas Edison, I guess arguably one of the greatest innovators of all time, he said, innovation is about 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. So the point is here is like in order to be successful, you have to be able to do both, be creative and also innovative, right? And if anything, the execution part is even more important than just the idea. But going back to your question, Janet, I guess I would answer it in a broader sense. You know what I mean? Like more from a business sense rather than only focusing on additive. I don't think there is a set template for uh, inspiring creativity and innovation. And I think our role as leader is really to, create the safe space that would enable our people to be brave, to like experiment, and not afraid of making mistakes as long as, they learn from it and actually, think outside the box. But there are a few guiding principles, I would say, and they're actually not rocket science, for me that I found over the years help a little bit. The first one is actually to make it fun, So if you make something fun, I think somehow people become more creative. So, for example, in my own team here at HP, we have these quarterly meetings. And during our quarterly meetings, we would have this one session where we would divide ourselves into different groups, and then each group would think about what is your one big idea, and then everyone would come back together and present it to the rest, the team in a Shark Tank style, and people became competitive. People were competitive, and it's fun because and then you got all these great ideas because it's fun. And then the second one, which is actually right the opposite of that, is to make it part of your everyday life. I think somehow companies think that, hey, innovation is this like big magical thing that's like separate from the rest of the organization, like I'm the innovation guy or whatever. You know what I found in reality, it could be the opposite. I found that sometimes employees are actually the most creative and innovative when they're just trying to solve their everyday problems or when there is a crisis. So for example, of course, this COVID thing, perfect example. People trying to pivot their plan, people trying to achieve more with less because no one has as much budget and resources compared to what they used to have, or sometimes just trying to solve customer problems. Like somehow you become innovative, yeah, right? And so I think that's important. And then the last thing that I'm trying to instill even here at HP is to mix people from diverse backgrounds, so from diverse disciplines with different experiences and perspectives. So here, even on my own team, when you look at my team, we have the classical creative, marketers, but we also have people with technical and engineering backgrounds, have people from small companies, have people from big companies, people from hardware, software, services. The point is when you mix people with different backgrounds, then you are able to create what I call the value network. And basically what the value network is, the kind of interconnectedness of the different individual members, can advance the network as a whole compared to just, individuals in a silo. And so those are kind of like just some of the things that I found to be helpful, at least based on my experience.
Thanks for sharing that. You touched on diversity being extremely important. So that kind of brings me to, a topic near and dear, especially for women in 3D printing, because we're trying to advocate to increase more women into technology and STEM. You've been featured on World Economic Forum, Women Powering Tech Summit. I think you're nominated as Asia's top 25 most powerful women tech queen in Indonesia, and have been featured on the Wall Street Journal and The Economist. How can we get more women into tech? How can we get more girls wanting to, pursue STEM?
Mm-hmm.
What have you found?
Yeah. Another great question, Janet. And I think I want to answer that in several layers. So let's start from the kind of very beginning. I think first it just has to start with intellectual capital. And what I mean by that, I think girls from a very young age just need to know that it's kind of cool to study math and science. And I think parents and teachers, and society communities need to encourage girls from a young age to actually study math and science. I read an interesting statistics recently, that according to the Society of Women's Engineers, in grade school, in elementary school, they found that 60% of boys said that, hey, they love, their favorite subject is math and science, but only like 40% of girls, and then when you go to universities and you look at the top 5 states in the United States that graduate the most female graduates in STEM and engineering, only 20% of the graduates are women, so if you look from the pipeline perspective, right, I think we all need to do a better job of encouraging, girls to study math and science. In addition to that, I think girls also need female role models who are good in math and science, but not just at the aspirational level. I feel like when people think of role models, they're like, it has to be C-levels, Nobel Prize winners, top scientists. I think those are great, don't get me wrong. But I think you also need female role models who are just 1 or 2 steps ahead of you in your career, and the reason for that, because, hey, let's just be honest, if you're a high school student, your next stop probably is not the C-level, right? But, your next stop is probably, university or graduate school. So you need female role models at that level so you can, be more practical. And then the same with others, and in every stage of your career, I think you need both aspirational and practical role models. And then the third one, which especially here at HP, I see a lot. I think so. We have talked about the supply side, but let's talk about the demand side. I think on the demand side, companies need to be much more systemic and serious with regard to hiring and developing female leaders in STEM. And I actually am pretty impressed with HP, and not just because I work here, but I actually think it's impressive because when you look at HP, we are really serious with that. Like our board is, I think, 58% diverse, 45% women, which is pretty high for a tech company, Fortune 100 board. And then we also have real programs to actually not just hire, but retain and develop, female leaders. And then last but not least, and this is, I think, good news, and I actually wrote an article about this, Janet, in Forbes 8 years ago. I think females are also more likely to stay in a STEM area where they feel they can contribute something more rather than just selling a product. And I found, 3D printing, I think, especially if you think of it from a digital transformation perspective, because you're enabling, this much more efficient, cleaner, more sustainable manufacturing system, right? I think it really has the potential, to really attract, females because they feel, hey, we're here. We're not just selling the printer or whatever, the software, but we're actually enabling, this kind of transformation of the manufacturing sector to be more efficient, cleaner, more sustainable, which at the end of the day contributes something more to society.
And who guided you through this process, or how did you find mentors as you, developed your track record?
Very early in my career, so like my first kind of like position right out of business school, I was, I went to PG&E, which is like a large energy company here in California. But at that time when I joined, they were in the middle of transitioning their system into more green, more sustainable, smarter, with connectivity, with IoT, with renewables and all that. I found it's funny, like I think both mentors and sponsors, actually both men and women, and if anything, I think my biggest sponsor was actually a man, wasn't a woman, but somehow he really believed in developing female leaders. I guess he had two daughters, perhaps that affected him. I found that when you are at the company, it's either usually the companies, like especially big companies, they have formal programs, and of course you should participate in the formal programs. But let's be honest, sometimes, you may or may not connect with the people that they connect you with in the formal programs, which you should maintain. But I think you should also take an initiative to kind of like check out at your companies, hey, who are some of the people doing interesting things that you found interesting? Reach out to them, like some of them would be open to it, others may not, but you have to kind of network, right? Like on your own. And then the same thing outside of work, be involved with other organizations or other initiatives, such as, I guess, women in 3D printing is one example. Basically, you just have to get out of your comfort zone and be willing to, I guess, put yourself out there, and then meet people.
Speaking of career path and growth, do you have any closing wisdoms for young professionals, men or women, who are interested in climbing up that leadership ladder? They can really make an impact. I think everyone wants to know, what is your secret sauce?
Yeah. Great question, right? Well, I think first and foremost, and I'm sure everyone would agree, I think just accepting that life is a journey and understanding that life is a journey is important, because I think sometimes people just want to go to they think it's a destination, but there is really no destination. It's just a journey. It goes up and down. And I think the more you kind of come at peace with that, the better. But of course, there are, again, guiding principles. And I would say mine are actually pretty simple. The first one, I think, is to embrace change. If anything, I think in my career, the one thing that has been constant, things will always change. And so you need to have a growth mindset, embrace change, and sometimes even disrupt yourself first before others disrupt you. Like I would say in many of my careers, when I changed position, almost always it had been because, basically it was on my terms. You know what I mean? Like somehow I never waited until, something happened or whatever, like I always took the initiative, to do something on my own terms. And then the second is, learn from your mistakes. Again, I think perfection overrated. And if you're not making mistakes, that means you're not outside of your comfort zone. And that means, you're not quite stretching yourself. So don't be afraid to make mistakes, as long as you reflect and learn and grow. And then the third one, I think, is to celebrate small victories, because I found sometimes people want to wait for this big, glorious thing before they celebrate. But I've learned big, glorious things happen not so often in your life. And so in order to keep you motivated, you need to celebrate the little victories, to remind you, hey, you're on the right path here. And then the fourth one, of course, find both good mentors and sponsors. I think both men and women. And I think people know what the mentor is, someone that you connect with, exchange ideas. Basically, mentor gives you good advice. But sponsor is usually someone who's much more powerful and senior in the organization, that is willing to put his or her reputation on the line to help you earn the opportunity to get ahead. Again, you have to earn it. Nothing is free. So you have to actually prove yourself, but in your effort of, developing your network and all that, you need to get outside of your comfort zone and, get a few mentors that would be, a few sponsors that would be willing to act as your champion. And then last but not least, and actually I really believe, in this last one is, I think I really would like to encourage people to not just focus on themselves. So don't just focus on your passion. Hey, actually having passion is great. If anything, it's the first step. but also think about how you can combine that passion with your skills, which is what you're good at, because, some people can have passion. I mean, I might have a passion to be a fashion designer, but, I'm not good at it. But, combine that passion with skills, but most importantly with, I think, purpose, which is kind of like, what are you contributing more? Because only then I think can you get like real satisfaction. Because when you're only focused on yourself, I think sometimes you feel kind of there is this hollowness. But if you think about how you can contribute, then somehow, at least for me, I become kind of more satisfied, happier.
Thank you so much for those tips. Gonna put you on the spot here. You gave tips on the young folks that are trying to climb up that ladder, but what about folks that are seasoned, that want to, after hearing this podcast, are inspired to find folks to mentor?
I think as you go through your career journey, and again, everyone has to decide for themselves, I think people is always looking for something more. If you become a mentor, actually, by nature, you will develop, I think, your leadership skills as well. But also you feel good because there's something in it for you as well, because as you mentor someone and you see that person also grow and achieve more, somehow you feel, I mean, it's not just because of you, but you feel like, hey, look at that, you know what I mean? That's almost kind of like, like you're doing something meaningful. The simplest place would be at your own workplace, or by joining organizations like like Women in 3D Printing. Maybe you guys can have like a formal mentorship program. I think sponsorship is slightly different, because I think sponsorship only works, it's not only works, but it's more powerful if it's within your own company, because that's where the sponsorship can really affect change. Because if you're a sponsor to someone but you're from another company, then it may not as powerful as, let's say, if you're a sponsor but you're in the same company, you understand the dynamics, you understand who the players are, you're a little bit more likely, I would say, to be successful, both as the sponsoree or as the sponsor.
Thanks for that. I hope that encourages more folks to be a sponsor. And I just have one last question. Sonita, where do you go from here? What is the next big thing?
From the practical perspective, because hey, today I'm working, right? Like I'm in the corporate world. I think for the 3D printing industry, which I foresee myself to still be in this industry at least for the foreseeable future, definitely want to be a change agent, and I've been trying to do that even here at HP. I would say with varying degrees of success, to be that change agent, to encourage, I would say, the players in the 3D printing industry to be more customers and solution centric. And then also to encourage the players to, again, as I said, break down the silos and, be more collaborative, so that we can form and leverage that value network where we as an industry move forward together and become bigger together, rather than everyone focusing on their own little silo, which at the end of the day, in the big scheme of things, is still small.
Thank you so much for reiterating that. Really appreciate it. And I hope everyone listening to this podcast will get inspired and also tune into the TIPE virtual conference, which is happening January 27th to 28th, 2021. Sonita Lontoh will be speaking there, and we're really excited to have you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Janet. See you guys at the TIPE conference.
Thanks again for joining us at the Women in 3D Printing podcast TIPE Series. If you like the content, please hit that subscribe button, follow us on LinkedIn or other social media platforms.
We'd also like to give a shout out to our platinum sponsors, HP, Trump, GE Additive, Matter Hackers, and Dassault for making all of this even possible. So mark your calendars for January 27th to 28th next year in 2021.
And visit us at type3dprinting.com to save your seat. And feel free to drop us a line if you have any questions or feedback.